Chapter 8. I meet the bomb in hiking Eldred's old rooms. This time, I am resolved to go over every inch of the chambers before Cardan is moved into them, and I am determined he should stay here, in the most secure part of the palace, whatever his preferences might be. When I arrive, the bomb is lighting the last of the fat candles above a fireplace, the runnels of wax so established that they make a kind of sculptor. It is strange to be in here now, without Nicasia to buttonhole or anything else to distract me from looking around. The walls shimmer with mica, and the ceiling is all branches and green vines. In the antechamber, the cell of an enormous snail glows, a lamp the size of a small table. The bomb gives me a quick grin. Her white hair is pulled back into braids knotted with a few shimmering silver bits. Someone you trust has already betrayed you. I try to put Nicasia's words out of my head. After all, that could mean anything. It's typical fiery bullshit, ominous but applicable so broadly that it could be the clue to a trap about to be sprung on me or a reference to something that happened when we were all taking lessons together. Maybe she's warning me that a spy is in my confidence, or maybe she's alluding to Tarin's having it off with Locke. And yet, I cannot stop thinking about it. So the assassin got away through here? The bomb says. The ghost says you chased after them. I shake my head. There was no assassin. It was a romantic misunderstanding. Her eyebrows go up. The hiking is very bad at romance, I say. I guess so, she says. So you want to toss the sitting room, and I'll take the bedroom? Sure, I agree, heading toward it. The secret passageway is beside a fireplace carved like the grinning mouth of a goblin. The bookshelf is still shifted to one side, revealing spiraling steps up into the walls. I close it. You really think you can get Cardan to move in here? The bomb calls from the other room. It's such a waste to have all this glorious space go unused. I lean down to start pulling books off the shelves, opening them and shaking them a bit to see if there's anything inside. A few yellowing and disintegrating pieces of paper fall out, along with a feather and a carved bone letter opener. Someone hollowed one of the books out, but nothing rests inside the compartment. Still, another tome has been eaten away by insects. I throw that one out. The last room Cardan occupied caught fire. I call back to the bomb. Let me rephrase. It caught fire because he lit it on fire. She laughs. It would take him days to burn all this. I look back at the books and I'm not so sure. They are dry enough to burst into flames just by my looking at them too long. With a sigh, I stack them and move on to the cushions, to pulling back the racks. Underneath, I find only dust. I dump out all the drawers onto the massive table-sized desk. The metal nibs of quill pens, stones carved with faces, 3 signet rings, a long tooth of a creature I cannot identify, and 3 vials with the liquid inside dried black and solid. In another drawer, I find jewels, a color of black jet, a beaded bracelet with a clasp, heavy golden rings. In the last I find quartz crystals cut into smooth, polished globes and spears. When I lift one to the light, something moves inside it. Bomb, I call, my voice a little high. She comes into the room, carrying a jeweled coat so heavily encrusted that I am surprised anyone was willing to stand in it. What's wrong? Have you ever seen anything like this before? I hold up a crystal ball. She peers into it. Look, there's Dane. I take it back and look inside. A young Prince Dane sits on the back of a horse, holding a bow in one hand and apples in the other. Elowen sits on a pony to one side of him, and Rhea to the other. He throws 3 apples in the air, and all of them draw their bows and shoot. Did that happen? I ask. Probably, she says. Someone must have enchanted the swords for Eldred. I think of Grimsen's legendary swords, of the golden acorn that disgorged Lyriop's last words, of Mother's marrow cloth that could turn even the sharpest blade, and all the mad magic that high kings are given. These were common enough to be stuffed away into a drawer. I pull out each one to see what's inside. I see Balekin as a newborn child, the thorns already growing out of his skin. He squalls in the arms of a mortal midwife, her gaze glazed with glamour. Look into this one, the bomb says with a strange expression. It's Cardan, a very small child. He's dressed in a shirt that's too large for him. It hangs down like a gown. He's barefoot, his feet and shirt streaked with mud, but he wears dangling hoops in his ears, as though an adult gave him their earrings. A horned fairy woman stands nearby, and when he runs to her, she grabs his wrist before he can put his dirty hands on her skirts. She says something stern and shoves him away. When he falls, she barely notices, too busy being drawn into conversation with other courtiers. I expect Cardan to cry, but he doesn't. Instead, he stomps off to a tree that an older boy is climbing. The boy says something, and Cardan grabs for his ankle. A moment later, the boy is on the ground, and Cardan's small, grubby hand is forming a fist. At the sound of the scuffle, the fiery woman turns and laughs, clearly delighted by his escapade. When Cardan looks back at her, he's smiling too. I shove the crystal back into the drawer. Who would cherish this? It's horrible. And yet, it's not dangerous. There's no reason to do anything with it but leave it where it was. The bomb and I continue through the room together. Once we're satisfied it's safe, we head through a door carved with an owl back into the king's bedchamber. A massive half-tester bed rests in the center, curtained in green, with the symbol of the green briar line stitched in gleaming gold. Thick spider silk blankets are smoothed out over a mattress that smells as though it has been stuffed with flowers. "Come on," says the bomb, flopping down on the bed and rolling over so that she's looking up at the ceiling. "Let's make sure it's safe for our new hiking, just in case." I suck in a surprised breath, but follow. My weight on the mattress makes it deep, and the heady scent of roses overwhelms my senses. Spreading out on the kings of Elham's coverlets, breathing in the air that perfumed his nights, has an almost hypnotic quality. The bomb pillows her head in her arms as though it's not a big thing, but I remember hiking Eldred's hand on my head and the slight jolt of nerves and pride I felt each time he acknowledged me. Lying on his bed feels like wiping my dirty peasant feet on the throne, and yet how could I not? "Our king is a lucky duck," the bomb says. "I'd like a bed like this, big enough to have a guest or two." "Oh yeah?" I ask, teasing her as I would have once teased my sisters. "Anyone in particular?" She looks away, embarrassed, which makes me pay attention. I push myself up on one elbow. "Wait, is it someone I know?" For a moment she doesn't answer, which is long enough. "It is! The ghost!" "Jude!" she says. "No!" I frown at her. "The roach?" The bomb sits up, long fingers pulling the coverlet to her. Since she cannot lie, she only sighs. "You don't understand. The bomb is beautiful, delicate features and warm brown skin, wild white hair and luminous eyes. I think of her as possessing some combination of charm and skill that means she could have anyone she wanted. The roach's black tongue and his twisted nose and the tuft of fur-like hair at the top of his scalp add up to his being impressive and terrifying. But even according to the aesthetics of fairyland, even in a place where inhuman beauty is celebrated along with almost opulent ugliness, I'm not sure even he would guess that the bomb longs for him. I would never have guessed it. I don't know how to say that to her without sounding as though I am insulting him, however. "I guess I don't," I concede. She draws a pillow onto her lap. "My people died in a brutal, internecine-scarred war a century ago, leaving me on my own. I went into the human world and became a small-time crook. I wasn't particularly good at it. Mostly I was just using glamour to hide my mistakes. That's when the roach spotted me. He pointed out that while I might not be much of a thief, I was a dab hand at concocting potions and bombs. We went around together for decades. He was so affable, so dapper and charming, that he'd con people right to their faces, no magic required. I smile at the thought of him in a derby hat and a vest with a pocket watch, amused by the world and everything in it. Then he had this idea we were going to steal from the Card of Teeth in the north. The con went wrong. The card carved us up and filled us full of curses and yeeses, changed us, forced us to serve them. She snaps her fingers, and sparks fly. "Fun, right?" "I bet it wasn't," I say. She flops back and keeps talking. "The roach, Van. I can't call him the roach while I'm talking like this. Van's the one who got me through being here. He told me stories, tales of Queen Map's imprisoning a frost giant, of binding all the great monsters of Yore and winning the high crown. Stories of the impossible. Without Van, I don't know if I could have survived. Then we screwed up a job, and then got hold of us. He had a scheme for us to betray the Card of Teeth and join him. So we did. The ghost was already by his side, and the three of us made a formidable team. me with explosive, the roach stealing anything or anyone, and the ghost a sharpshooter with a light step. And here we are, somehow saving the court of Elham, working for the High King himself. Look at me, sprawled across his royal bed, even. But here, there's no reason for Van to take my hand or sing to me when I'm hurting. There's no reason for him to bother with me at all. She lapses into silence. We both stare up at the ceiling. You should tell him, I say, which is not bad advice, I think. Not advice I would take myself, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. Perhaps the bomb pushes herself up off the bed. No tricks or traps. You think it's safe to let our king in here? I think of the boy in the crystal, of his proud smile and his bold fist. I think of the horned fiery woman, who must have been his mother, shoving him away from her. I think of his father, the High King, who didn't bother to intervene, didn't even bother to make sure he was clothed or his face wiped. I think of how Cardan avoided these rooms. I sigh. I wish I could think of a place he'd be safer. At midnight, I am expected to attend a banquet. I sit several seats from the throne and pick at a course of crispy tills. A trio of pixies sings a cappella for us as courtiers try to impress one another with their wit. Overhead, chandeliers drip walks in long strands. High King Cardan smiles down the table indulgently and yawns like a cat. His hair is messy, as though he did no more than finger comb it since rising from my bed. Our eyes meet, and I am the one who looks away, my face hot. Kiss me until I am sick of it. Wine is brought in colored carafes. They glow aquamarine and sapphire, citrine and ruby, amethyst and topaz. Another course comes with sugared violets and frozen dew. Then come domes of glass, under which little silvery fish sit in a cloud of pale blue smoke. From the undersea, says one of the cooks, dressed for the occasion. She bows. I look across the table at Randalin, Minister of Keys, but he's pointedly ignoring me. All around me, the domes rise, and the smoke, redolent of peppercorns and herbs, fills the room. I see that Locke has seated himself beside Cardan, drawing the girl whose seat it was onto his lap. She kicks up her hooped feet and throws back her horned head in laughter. Ah, says Cardan, lifting up a gold ring from his plate. I see my fish has something in its belly. And mine, says a courtier on his other side, picking out a single shiny pearl as large as a thumbnail. She laughs with delight. A gift from the sea. Its silvery fish contains a treasure. The cooks are summoned, but they give stammering disavowals, swearing the fish were fresh caught and fed nothing but herbs by the kitchen folk. I frown at my plate, at the beds of sea glass I find beneath my fish gills. When I look up, Locke holds a single gold coin, perhaps part of a lost mortal ship's hoard. I see you staring at him, Nikasa says, sitting down beside me. Tonight she wears a gown of gold lacework. Her dark tourmaline hair is pulled up with two golden combs the shape of a Sergio, complete with golden teeth. Perhaps I am looking only at the trinkets and gold with which your mother thinks she can buy this court's favor, I say. She picks up one of the violets from my plate and places it delicately on her tongue. I lost Cardan's love for Locke's easy words and easier kisses, sugared like these flowers, she says. Your sister lost your love to get Locke's, didn't she? But we'll know what you lost. Locke? I laugh. Good riddance. Her brows knit together. Surely it's not the High King himself you were gazing at? Surely not, I echo, but I don't meet her eyes. Do you know why you didn't tell anyone my secret? She asks. Perhaps you tell yourself that you enjoy having something over my head, but in truth, I think it's that you knew no one would ever believe you. I belong in this world. You don't, and you know it. You don't even belong on land, she princess, I remind her. And yet I cannot help recalling how the living council doubted me. I cannot help how her words crawl under my skin. Someone your trust has already betrayed you. This will never be your world, mortal, she says. This is mine, I say, anger making me reckless. My land and my king, and I will protect them both. Say the same. Go on. He cannot love you, she says to me, her voice suddenly brittle. She obviously doesn't like the idea of my claiming Cardan. Obviously is still infatuated with him. and just as obviously has no idea what to do about it. What do you want? I ask her. I was just sitting here, minding my own business, eating my dinner. You're the one who came up to me. You're the one accusing me of... I'm not even sure what. Tell me what you have over him, Nikasha says. How did you trick him into putting you at his right hand? You whom he despised and reviled. How is that you have his ear? I will tell you, if you tell me something in return. I turn toward her, giving her my full attention. I have been puzzling over the secret passageway in the palace, over the woman in the crystal. I've told you all that I am willing to, Nikasha begins. Not that. Cardan's mother, I say, cutting her off. Who was she? Where is she now? She tries to turn her surprise into mockery. If you're such good friends, why don't you ask him? I never said we were friends. A servant with a mouth full of sharp teeth and butterfly wings on his back brings the next course. The heart of a deer, cooked rare and stuffed with toasted hazelnuts. Nikasha picks up the meat and tears into it, blood running over her fingers. She runs her tongue over red teeth. She wasn't anyone, just some girl from the lower courts. Eldred never made her a consort, even after she'd borne him a child. I blink in obvious surprise. She looks insufferably pleased, as though my not knowing has proved once and for all how unsuitable I am. Now it's your turn. You want to know what I did to make him raise me up? I ask, leaning toward her, close enough that she can feel the warmth of my breath. I kiss him on the mouth, and then I threaten to kiss him some more if he didn't do exactly what I wanted. Liar, she hisses. If you're such good friends, I say, repeating her own words back to her with malicious satisfaction, why don't you ask him? Her gaze goes to Cardan, his mouth stained red with heart's blood, crowned at his brow. They appear two of a kind, a matched set of monsters. He doesn't look over, busy listening to the latist who has composed on the spot a rollicking ode to his role. My king, I think, but only for a year and a day, and 5 months are already gone. Chapter 9. Tatterfell is waiting for me when I get back to my rooms, her beetle eyes disapproving as she picks up the High King's trousers from my couch. So this is how you've been living? The little imp grumbles. A worm in a butterfly cocoon? Something about being scolded is comfortingly familiar, but that doesn't mean I like it. I turn away so she can't see my embarrassment at how untidy I've let things get. Not to mention what it looks like I've been doing, and with whom. Sworn into Maddox's service until she worked off some old debt of honor, Tatterfell could not have come here without his knowledge. She may have taken care of me since I was a child, brushed my hair and mended my dresses, and strung rowan berries to keep me from being enchanted. But it is Maddox who has her loyalty. It's not that I don't think she was fond of me, in her way, but I've never mistaken that for love. I sigh. The castle servants would have cleaned my rooms if I let them, but then they'd notice my odd hours and be able to riffle through my papers, not to mention my poisons. No, better to bar the door and sleep in filth. My sister's voice comes from my bedroom. You're back early. She sticks her head out, holding up a few garments. Someone you trust has already betrayed you. How did you get in? I ask. My key turned, met resistance. The tumblers moved. I have been taught the humble art of lock-picking, and though I am no prodigy, I can at least tell when a door is locked in the first place. Oh, Tarin says and laughs. I posed as you and got a copy of your key. I want to kick a wall. Surely everyone knows I have a twin sister. Surely everyone knows mortals can lie. Ought someone not have at least asked a question she might find tricky to answer before handing over access to palace rooms? To be fair though, I have myself lied again and gotten away with it. I can hardly begrudge Tarin for doing the same. It's my bad luck that tonight is when she chooses to barge in, with Cardan's clothing scattered over my rack and a heap of his bloody bandages still on a low table. I persuaded Maddox to give the remainder of Tatterfell's debt to you, Tarin announces, and I've brought you all your coats and dresses and jewels. I look into the imp's ink-drop eyes. You mean Maddox has her spying for him? Tatterfell's lip curls, and I am reminded how sharply she pinches. Aren't you a sly and suspicious girl? You ought to be ashamed, saying such a thing. I am grateful for the times you were kind, I say. If Madoc has given your debt to me, consider it paid long ago. Tatterfell frowns unhappily. Madoc spared my lover's life when he could have taken it by right. I pledged him 100 years of my service, and that time is nearly up. Do not dishonor my vow by thinking it can be dismissed with a wave of your hand. I am stung by her words. Are you sorry he sent you? Not yet, she says, and goes back to work. I head toward my bedroom, picking up Cardan's bloody rags before Tatterfell can. As I pass the hearth, I toss them into the flames. The fire flares up. So, I ask my sister, what did you bring me? She points to my bed, where she has spread my old things on my newly rumpled sheets. It's odd to see the clothes and jewels I haven't had in months. The things Madoc bought for me. The things Oriana approved. Tunics, gowns, fighting gear, doublets. Tarin even brought the homespun I used to sneak around Hollowhall and the clothes we wore when we snuck to the mortal wall. When I look at it all, I see a person who is both me and not. A kid who went to classes and didn't think the stuff she was learning would be all that important. A girl who wanted to impress the only dad she knew, who wanted a place in the court, who still believed in honor. I am not sure if I fit in these clothes anymore. Still, I hang them in my closet, beside my two black doublets and a single pair of high boots. I open a box of my jewels, earrings given to me for birthdays, a golden cuff, 3 rings, one with a ruby that Madoc gave me on a blood moon revel, one with his crest that I don't even remember receiving, and a thin gold one that was a present from Mariana. Necklaces of moonstone, chunks of quartz, carved bone. I slide the ruby ring onto my left hand. And I brought some sketches, she says, taking out a pad of paper and sitting cross-legged on my bed. Neither of us is a great artist, but her drawings of clothing are easy to understand. I want to take them to my tailor. She's imagined me in a lot of black jackets with high collars, the skirts slashed up the sides for easy movement. The shoulders look as though they're armored, and in a few cases, she has drawn what appears to be a single shiny sleeve of metal. They can measure me, she says. You won't even have to go to the fittings. I give her a long look. Tarin doesn't like conflict. Her manner of dealing with all the terror and confusion in our lives has been to become immensely adaptable, like one of those lizards that change color to match their surroundings. She's the person who knows what to wear and how to behave, because she studies people carefully and mimics them. She's good at picking out clothes to send a certain message, even if the message of her drawings appear to be stay away from me or I will chop off your head. And it's not like I don't think she wants to help me, but the effort she's put into this, especially as her own marriage is imminent, seems extraordinary. Okay, I say. What do you want? What do you mean? She asks, all in innocence. You want us to be friends again, I say, sliding into more modern diction with her. I appreciate that. You want me to come to your wedding, which is great, because I want to be there, but this is too much. I can be nice, she says, but does not meet my eyes. I wait. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. I know she saw Cardan's clothes tossed on the floor. Her not immediately asking about that should have been my first clue that she wanted something. Fine, she sighs. It's not a big deal, but there is a thing I want to talk to you about. No kidding, I say, but I can't help smiling. She shoots me a look of vast annoyance. I don't want Locke to be master of rebels. You and me both. But you could do something about it. Tarin winds her hands in her skirts. Locke craves dramatic experiences, and as master of rebels, he can create these. I don't even know what to call them, stories. He doesn't so much think of a party as food and drinks and music, but rather a dynamic that might create conflict. Okay, I say, trying to imagine what that means for politics. Nothing good. He wants to see how I'll react to the things he does, she says. That's true. He wanted to know, for instance, if Tarin loved him enough to let him court me while she stood by, silent and suffering. I think he'd have been interested in finding out the same about me, but I turned out to be very prickly. She goes on. And Cardan, And the circles of the guard. He's already been talking to the larks and the grackles, finding their weaknesses, figuring out which squabbles he can inflame and how. Locke might do the larks some good, I say. Give them a ballad to write. As for the grackles, if he can compete with their debauches, I guess he ought to have at it, although I am clever enough not to say that out loud. The way he talks for a moment, it all seems like it's fun, even if it's a terrible idea, Tarin says. His being master of revels is going to be awful. I don't care about him taking lovers, but I hate him being away from me. Jude, please, do something. I know you want to say you told me so, but I don't care. I have bigger problems, I want to tell her. Madoc would almost certainly say you don't have to marry him. Vivid say that too, I bet. In fact, I bet they have. But you know me too well to bother, she shakes her head. When I'm with him, I feel like the hero of a story, of my story. It's when he's not there that things don't feel right. I don't know what to say to that. I could point out that Tarin seems to be the one making up the story, casting Locke in the role of the protagonist and herself as the romantic interest who disappears when she's not on the page. But I do remember being with Locke, feeling special and chosen and pretty. Now, thinking about it, I just feel dumb. I guess I could order Cardan to strip the title from Locke. But Cardan would resent my using my power for something so petty and personal. It would make me seem weak, and Locke would figure out that the stripping of his title was my fault, since I haven't made my dislike a secret. He'd know that I had more power over Cardan and quite made sense. And everything Tarin is complaining about would still happen. Locke doesn't need to be the High King's master of rebels to get into this kind of trouble. The title just allows him to manage it on a grander scale. I'll talk to Cardan about it, I lie. Her gaze goes to where his clothes were scattered across my floor. And she smiles.